The first time the alien students saw Travis Nolan bleed, it was in the middle of a zero-gravity welding demonstration on Deck 4. A jagged edge of carbon alloy piping had sliced open the underside of his forearm when he misjudged his push-off from a tethered handhold. The gash was deep, about 3 inches long, and immediately began to spill blood in lazy red globules that floated through the air like jellyfish. Travis winced as he reached out for the railing, anchoring himself. He looked down at his arm, where the skin was peeled back like a torn envelope. The exposed muscle twitched faintly. A drop of blood floated past his faceplate. "Someone grab me a bandage," he said, breathing a little harder. "I'm fine." The alien students froze, all 4 of them. Their instructor, a lanky, blue-skinned being named Varnak, blinked his vertical pupils rapidly and tilted his head toward the open wound, then back at Travis. "You are rupturing," Varnak said slowly, his translator implant struggling with the tone. Travis exhaled through his nose. "Bleeding. Yeah. Happens when your skin gets sliced open. Can someone get the med kit? I need gauze." "What is the volume loss threshold for fatality?" asked a smaller alien named Kier, who had been recording the lesson with what looked like a periscope attached to his shoulder. "Depends," Travis muttered. "How much I weigh, how fast I bleed, if it hits an artery. This isn't arterial, it's a vein. Slower, hurts like hell though." Another alien, Melik, drifted toward him and hesitated midair. "Should we alert station medical response?" Travis pressed a gloved hand against the wound and tried to keep pressure on it. His heart was starting to thud a little faster now. "No, just hand me the kit. I've got it." They stared. "Top left drawer of the yellow storage unit," he added. Varnak hesitated, then floated over to the unit and opened it. The medical kit was larger than a toolbox and labeled with bright red cross symbols. Varnak fumbled with the latches but eventually brought it to Travis. Travis took out a roll of gauze, a sterile wipe, and a compression bandage. He peeled off his glove with his teeth, gritting them as he pulled the wipe across the cut. The sting made his eyes water. "You are cleaning it with chemicals?" Kier asked, watching closely. "Yeah, disinfectant. Stops infection. Human immune systems are good, but I'd rather not get sepsis." He wrapped the gauze tightly, then secured it with a compression bandage. His fingers trembled slightly as he fastened the Velcro. He let out a shaky breath and leaned his head against the wall. "You require hospitalization?" Varnak asked. "No," Travis said, "but I'm done for today." He floated toward the airlock, using the handholds to pull himself. The aliens followed at a cautious distance, observing him as if he were a strange, wounded animal that might collapse or explode at any moment. Back in the ship's central medbay, Dr. Levenberg, the human physician on board, examined the wound after Travis removed the makeshift bandage. "Could have used stitches," she said, inspecting the gash, "but you wrapped it pretty well. I'll clean it again and glue it." "Medical glue?" asked Varnak, who had followed them into the medbay. "Dermabond," she said, not looking up. "We use it for small to medium lacerations. He'll need antibiotics, too." "Antibiotics. The microbe killers," Kier said quietly. Travis sat still as she applied the antiseptic and then the glue, which stung worse than the disinfectant. He clenched his jaw but didn't say anything. "How long will it take to heal?" Melik asked from the doorway. "About 10 to 14 days, Levenberg said. "He'll be sore for a while. If it opens up again, we'll stitch it." Later that evening, Travis lay in his bunk, arm in a sling to keep him from bending it in his sleep. His roommate, a quiet alien named Tharn, who barely spoke, watched from his own bunk. "You did not emit distress tones," Tharn said finally. "I did," Travis replied, "just not loud ones. You said you were fine." There was lying. Tharn blinked slowly. "Why?" "Because we were in the middle of a welding exercise in 0G. Freaking out would have made it worse." There was a pause. "Your kind is not as fragile as we assumed." Travis gave a small laugh, then winced. "We're plenty fragile, we just get used to pain." For the next several days, Travis was excused from any activity involving physical strain. He attended the xenomedical courses and planetary survival lectures with his arm in a sling, taking notes with his non-dominant hand. The alien students watched him constantly, whispering to one another during lectures, clearly still puzzled by the incident. On the sixth day, during a biomechanical engineering class, Varnak approached him during a break. "We have reviewed the footage of your injury," he said, repeatedly. "Rough cut," Travis said, sipping a protein shake. "We analyzed your vitals, movement patterns, and facial expressions. You did not show indicators of severe distress until after treatment began." "Adrenaline," Travis said. "It kicks in when you're hurt, numbs the pain for a while. And your blood, it flowed freely, yet you maintained functionality." "Yeah, humans have about 5 liters. You can lose about 1 without dying. Maybe 2 if you're lucky and quick with treatment." Varnak stared at him. "And you still requested a—" "Because it was all I needed." Varnak hesitated. "Would all humans respond as you did?" "No," Travis said. "Some would scream, some would faint, some would panic. Depends on the person." Varnak turned and walked away slowly. Travis had the distinct feeling that the alien wasn't disturbed by his answer. He was fascinated. 2 weeks later, Travis's arm had healed enough for the glue to be dissolved and the scar assessed. The wound had sealed cleanly, though the skin was still pink and tender. Dr. Levenberg gave him the all-clear for light physical activity. That day, the alien students requested a seminar on him. "I'm not a subject," Travis said when he walked into the room where they'd set up a round table. "We understand," Varnak said. "We simply wish to learn." "Fine," Travis said, sitting down. "You've got an hour." Here raised a hand. "What is human pain tolerance range?" Travis leaned back. "Depends on the person. Military folks have more. Kids, sometimes less. But it's not just physical. Mental factors matter. If you're scared, pain feels worse. If you're angry, it can feel less." "What about tolerance to blood loss?" "That also depends. Fit people can handle more. If you're dehydrated or sick, less. If you panic, your heart pumps faster, which makes you bleed faster." Malik tapped something into a tablet. "We reviewed your medical file. You have sustained multiple injuries prior to this incident." "Yeah," Travis said. "Broken ankle at 15, 2 concussions, some burns, a deep cut on the leg when I was 22. Varnak looked puzzled. "Yet you continued to engage in high-risk activities." "Because I like fixing things, and sometimes fixing things means getting hurt." There was a long silence. "You are complex," Varnak said. Travis raised an eyebrow. "Because I bled and didn't scream?" "Because you understood the threat and acted anyway." He shrugged. "That's just being careful. Doesn't mean I wasn't scared." "Your heart rate did not spike," Kerr said. "I've had practice." After the session, Travis returned to the workshop on deck 4. He flexed his arm, testing the scar. Still tight, but not painful. He ran diagnostics on the utility drones while humming. Behind him, Malik approached. "May I ask one more question?" "Shoot." "If you had bled more, what would you have done?" "Used a tourniquet, called the medic, prayed." "And if you were alone?" Travis looked at him. "Then I'd have done it all faster." Malik didn't respond immediately. Then, slowly, he said, "You are not invulnerable. But you are deliberate." "That's the idea." Travis smiled faintly. "Deliberate keeps you alive." And with that he went back to his work, the scar on his arm a quiet reminder that survival wasn't about being stronger. It was about thinking faster, acting smarter, and knowing when to say, "Grab me a bandage, I'm fine." The next session wasn't supposed to involve anything more than a structural integrity walkthrough. It was maintenance theory dull, procedural, full of flowcharts and redundancy protocols. Travis had been assigned as a human observer while the alien cadets conducted the inspection of the atmospheric stabilizers along corridor H4. It was narrow and humid in that section of the station, the temperature control slightly off due to a failing coolant valve. The alien students moved single file, their translucent uniforms clinging faintly to their smooth skin in the heat, while Travis trailed behind, wiping his forehead with a sleeve. "You all run cold or something?" he said, ducking under a low pipe that hissed faintly with vapor. "The environmental settings are calibrated to optimal conditions for our pulmonary function," Melek replied, scanning a junction plate with a pale green diagnostic wand. "Your species tolerates thermal flux unusually well." "I tolerate it because I've got sweat glands working overtime," Travis said. "And I skipped lunch." Kier turned his head, the stalk-mounted visual unit twitching. "Skipped nourishment deliberately?" "Didn't have time. I'll grab something after we wrap up here." They reached the stabilizer access panel. It was sealed with a manual crank, one of the few areas on the station that hadn't been automated. Baranek floated closer and gestured. "Travis, would you demonstrate the manual override?" Travis nodded, reaching for the crank with both hands. The mechanism was stiff, resisting his grip with a low groan of metal. He braced his shoulder against the bulkhead and twisted harder. With a sudden jolt, the crank gave way, and the panel popped open. Something inside snapped. A coil of compressed tubing unspooled like a whip, slashing across the back of his hand. The edge of the synthetic wrap was serrated where it had frayed, and it tore a deep line from his knuckles to his wrist. A thin spray of blood spattered the control housing. Travis pulled his hand back instinctively, clenching his fingers. The pain was sharp and immediate, like dragging his skin across a cheese grater. "Ah, damn it," he hissed, flexing his hand to see how bad it was. "That's deep." Varnick leaned forward. "That filament? Was it not secured?" "It was supposed to be." Travis looked at the bleeding. The cut wasn't gushing, but it was wide, and the skin around it had already started to swell. "Somebody cut a corner during the last service rotation." Kier hovered closer, scanning the wound with a handheld sensor. "Laceration length is approximately 6.5 centimeters. Depth is uneven. Subdermal exposure confirmed." Travis pulled a cloth from his belt and wrapped it tightly around the hand. "Keep those scans away from my face. I don't need to know the millimeters." "Is the pain incapacitating?" Melek asked, voice unusually quiet. "No," Travis said, "just annoying." He stood up straight and looked at the stabilizer. The panel was open now, and the misaligned coolant conduit was clearly visible. He could feel the blood soaking into the cloth already, but he kept his tone level. "All right, let's finish the inspection cycle. This won't kill me." "You are hemorrhaging," Varnack said. "Shouldn't you seek treatment?" Travis shook his head. "We're halfway through the checklist. I'll patch it once we're done." Kier checked his scanner again. "You're leaking at a rate of—" "No math," Travis said. "It's not arterial, I know the difference." 15 minutes later, the group moved on, with Travis keeping his hand elevated. The bleeding had slowed, but the wound throbbed with every step. When they finally reached the end of the corridor, he peeled back the cloth to check it. "Well, that's ugly," he muttered. The wound had started to clot, but unevenly. Bits of tubing filament had embedded in the skin, and the edges of the cut were jagged. He'd need to irrigate it properly before sealing, and there was no way he'd get a clean closure without removing the debris first. "All right," he said. "I'll head to medbay now." Varnack hovered beside him. "You declined immediate care." "Because I wanted to finish the job. Now that it's done, I'll let someone poke at it." Back in medbay, Dr. Levenberg raised an eyebrow as he walked in with a blood-stained cloth dripping onto the floor. "Another one?" she said, already reaching for gloves. "Back of the hand this time," Travis replied, sitting down and unwrapping the cloth slowly. "Any numbness?" "Nope. Still got feeling in all the fingers." She examined the wound under a bright overhead light, frowning slightly. "You've got fragments in here. I'll have to clean it out before I close it." "Not surprised," he said. "It was a busted coolant coil. Felt like it had teeth." She poured saline over the wound, catching the runoff in a shallow tray. Travis winced, but didn't pull away. She used forceps to start picking out the embedded filament strands, dropping them into a metal dish, one by one. "Hold still," she said. "This part's gonna suck." He gritted his teeth as she flushed the deeper part of the cut. then applied an anesthetic gel before probing again. Outside the medbay window, a group of alien students had gathered silently. They watched as Levenberg stitched the wound with fine, curved sutures, her movements efficient and calm. Travis stared at the ceiling, breathing through his nose. Kier leaned in toward the glass. "What is she doing now?" "She must rejoining the tissue," Malik answered. "With thread. But the skin is torn." "Yes. The thread draws it together so it can repair." Travis couldn't hear them, but he could see their faces pressed close to the window like kids at a zoo. He gave a small wave with his uninjured hand. Levenberg tied the final knot and clipped the suture. "You'll need to keep that dry for 2 days," she said, "and you're banned from manual work until I say otherwise." "Got it." She applied a breathable dressing and handed him a packet of oral antibiotics. "Take one every 12 hours. Don't skip." He nodded and pushed himself off the table, wiggling his fingers carefully. The stiffness was immediate, but manageable. When he stepped out into the corridor, the aliens backed up slightly, giving him a wide berth. "I'm not radioactive," Travis said, raising an eyebrow. "We observed the procedure," Varnak said. "The rejoining of severed tissue with fiber was unfamiliar." "It's common practice," Travis replied. "Stitches keep the skin together so it can rebuild underneath." "Why not replace the damaged area entirely?" Kier asked. "Because the body can do most of the work itself," Travis said. "We just help it along." They followed him back to the main deck, trailing with the same cautious awe they might have reserved for an unexploded device. Travis slumped into his bunk and leaned back against the wall, resting his bandaged hand on his chest. Thorne, from the upper bunk, looked down with slow, blinking eyes. "You have been punctured again." "Slashed," Travis corrected. "Different kind of injury. Your species requires frequent repair." "Not ideally," Travis said. "But yeah, we break, and then we heal." Tharn considered that for a moment. "Your resilience is not merely biological, it is procedural." Travis chuckled softly. "Welcome to humanity. We patch, wait, and keep moving." He closed his eyes, letting the hum of the station fill the quiet. His hand throbbed dully against his chest, but he could already feel the scab forming beneath the stitches. Outside, the alien cadets remained gathered, not taking notes, not scanning anything, just watching. The cafeteria on Deck 6 wasn't designed for comfort. It was functional, all chrome surfaces and echoing vents, with seats molded for a dozen different species' anatomies. Travis sat at a human-compatible table near the back, his left hand elevated on a chilled gel pack. A tray of lukewarm curry sat untouched in front of him. Across from him sat Kier, holding a small blue sphere of nutrients in his upper appendage, watching Travis chew on painkillers like they were breath mints. "You struggled to grasp with that hand," Kier said. "You noticed?" Travis muttered, shifting the gel pack slightly. "Tendons inflamed. Doc says to rest it. Not much else to do. Rest appears insufficient. You seem agitated." "I'm annoyed," Travis said. "I know how to work through pain, but not being able to use my hand? That's inconvenient." "You are left dominant?" "Right, but I need both for anything mechanical." Kier placed the nutrient sphere down with care. "Human tissue regeneration is slow compared to Helathi's standards. We regrow dermal layers in under 40 hours. "Yeah, well, we don't get that luxury," Travis said. "We get stitches, antiseptics, then try not to tear it open again." "Would you accept synthetic grafts?" "Only if I wanted to lose sensation and flexibility. Real skin's better, even if it takes longer." Varnak approached without ceremony, clutching a data slab. He set it down beside Kier and looked directly at Travis. "We reviewed training footage from the past 2 weeks. There's a pattern." "Of me getting sliced open?" Travis asked, raising an eyebrow. "Of you continuing activity despite trauma. We find this counterintuitive." Travis leaned back, flexing his injured hand slowly. "You think I should shut down every time I get a cut?" "It would prevent escalation of injury," Varnak said. "Halting movement is standard protocol in most species under duress." "Yeah, but humans don't operate that way," Travis said. "We assess damage, decide if it's manageable, then keep going. You don't stop a whole system just because one valve's leaking. Keir tilted his head. You equate bodily harm to mechanical failure? Because we work the same way, Travis said. Input, output, maintenance. Varnak tapped the data slab. You consumed no caloric intake for 18 hours after your last injury. I wasn't hungry. That is not sustainable. Didn't say it was smart, Travis said. It's just what happened. From the far end of the cafeteria, Melek drifted over carrying a translucent cubes. He placed a sealed medical pouch in front of Travis. Supplemental gel. Dr. Levenberg sent it. Contains amino acids, electrolytes, and protein. Travis looked at it, then at his untouched curry. Guess she's watching my stats too. She says your recovery window will double without proper intake, Malik said. She also said you're a stubborn jackass. Travis snorted, unscrewing the pouch and drinking. That sounds like her. Varnak remained standing. We wish to understand your parameters, your limits. I don't think you will, Travis said, wiping his mouth. Not because you're not smart, but because you're looking for a formula, and humans don't follow one. Varnak frowned. Explain. Half of us gets a broken leg and screams for 10 minutes. Another walks on it. Someone gets a burn and faints. Someone else loses a finger and drives themselves to the ER. There's no standard reaction. We just respond however we can. Tyr blinked. But there must be thresholds. For death, yeah. But for pain, tolerance, that's messy. It's mental, emotional, historical. You can't chart that. Malik sat down across from him, folding his legs under his body like a bird tucking in its wings. Your behavior is not reckless, but it appears unregulated. Travis nodded. It is. That's why we invented safety gear and warning signs, because we can't trust ourselves to be consistent. The cafeteria doors hissed open. Dr. Levenberg walked in holding a portable scanner. She crossed the room without acknowledging anyone else and held the scanner out to Travis. Scan your hand. Can I finish lunch first? No. He sighed and held out his bandaged hand. She ran the scanner over it, checking the depth of inflammation and tissue regeneration speed. You've been overusing it, she said. I told you to rest. I've been resting? No, you've been fidgeting. That counts. Keir leaned forward. Would grafting increase efficiency? Levenberg shook her head. Not for this kind of injury. Skin tension matters. Grafts over joints tend to restrict movement unless grown from the patient's own cells. That takes weeks. Melek asked, could the tissue be replaced with synthetic mesh? Technically, yes, but only if the area fails to heal on its own. We prefer to wait unless necrosis sets in. Keir turned to Travis. You are aware of the risk of tissue death? Yes, Travis said. And I'm not ignoring it, it's just not happening. Levenberg sighed. Barely. You're healing slower than expected because you're not sleeping enough and your cortisol levels are elevated. That's because I'm constantly being interrogated by aliens. You love the attention, she said, repacking her scanner. Keep the gel pack on for another hour. And eat real food. She left as abruptly as she came. Travis stared after her for a moment and then turned back to the others. She's nicer to you guys. She believes we follow medical instructions, Malik said. She's not wrong, Travis admitted. Kerr tapped his data slab. We have compiled 47 individual variables influencing human injury response. We are attempting to model a predictive matrix. You won't, Travis said, but knock yourselves out. Varnak sat down, finally. You said earlier that fear and anger alter pain perception. They do. Stress hormones change how we process sensations. That's why people in danger sometimes don't feel injuries until hours later. How do you train for that? We don't. Life trains you. Some folks grow up in rough places. Some go through accidents. Some get tough because they have to. But it's never the same path. Malik looked thoughtful. None of our species have this disparity. Our responses are uniform. Which is why your medical protocols are standardized, Travis said. Ours have to include a dozen options for the same injury. Kier looked up. You say response varies, but recovery also differs? Yeah. Some people scar easily, others don't. Some heal fast, others slow. Age matters, diet, genetics, sleep, mood, emotions affect healing. Absolutely. Depression slows it. Stress, too. Positive stuff helps. That's why people bring flowers to hospitals. It's not just tradition, it's biology. Varnick glanced at the gel pack. You used a cold compress. Why not heat? Cold reduces swelling. Heat relaxes muscles. Wrong one can make it worse. Kier looked surprised. We assumed temperature treatment was ceremonial. Not even close, Travis said. It's about blood flow. Trauma causes inflammation, cold constricts vessels, slows fluid buildup. Heat does the opposite. Malik tapped the table. We've never documented a species with such decentralized recovery behavior. Travis shrugged. That's humanity. No onboard repair system, just a lot of guesswork and stubbornness. Varnick looked at him for a long moment. You are not rugged because you are hard to break. You are rugged because you continue despite it. Travis smiled faintly. That's the whole idea. He finally picked up his fork and took a bite of the cold curry. It was bland, but edible. Kier gestured toward the gel pack. I will remind you to reapply that in 47 minutes. Thanks. Malik stood. You will not be harmed again today? I'll try not to be. Varnick rose after him. If you are, we will assist. Travis nodded, appreciated. The three aliens filed out, leaving Travis alone with his half-eaten tray and a slightly less angry hand. He peeled the dressing back and inspected the stitches. Still intact, no spreading redness, healing, albeit slowly. He finished his meal in silence, then returned the tray and headed for his bunk. The corridor lights dimmed slightly as the station entered evening cycle. As he climbed into bed, he adjusted the sling loosely, letting the arm rest across his chest. For once, it didn't throb. He closed his eyes, not because he was exhausted, but because he finally could. Nothing needed fixing. Not tonight.